Albert Breer bouncing around to a half a dozen camps around the corner. He's already been to a dozen. He's in Detroit today. By the way, college football
Colin, one of your guys, Colin, before you start, one of your guys just reminded me that you left out an offensive coach there.
Ryan Day? Well, yeah.
He had a pretty good record his first 2 years.
Yeah, but Ryan Day didn't take over a mess. He took over a powerhouse.
That's true.
These guys had to rebuild. I mean, rebuilding is hard. It's probably easier at Ohio State, but it's hard. It is hard. You remember how bad Michigan was pre-Harbaugh. Half the stadium was empty.
Oh, yeah. No. It was a mess. Rich Rod and Brady Hoke, it was not good.
So let's start with this. You're at the Lions. We got into this discussion yesterday. I said, I can think two things. I love him, but I worry about Dan Campbell in high-leverage situational coaching. He gets very emotional. Mm-hmm. But be that as it may, you've been there last couple of days. What do you make? What's the vibe?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of things. Really, that team knows how to practice. And I was, at a practice today that lasted over 2 hours. It was very scrimmage heavy. And what struck me about it, Colin, as physical as they are, you would see hits out there where at almost any other camp, you'd be like, okay, that guy's going to bounce up and there's going to be a fight. And it didn't happen. And it's just like a certain efficiency and knowing how to practice. It's just a very business-like group that understands the expectations and what's in front of them. And then I think the other thing that definitely jumps out, one thing you'd have your radar up for here is that the expectations, the money, all of that has maybe gone to people's heads. Yeah. You always have your radar up in these situations where teams come up the way the Lions came up. And, you don't see that at all. Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, all those guys are the same guys they were in 2021 when they were getting their brains beat in by everybody, So I just think it's a really good place right now. It's a really healthy place right now. And the roster is getting better and better. In fact, I would tell you this, one of the things that really stuck out to me is how much better they're going to be a corner. Yeah. Which has been one spot where they've had a little bit of a revolving door the last few years. And then, you take that into account, what Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw are going to be able to do as rookies. You don't find too many holes on this team. So should be another really, really good year in Detroit, in a year in which I think expectations are almost at an unprecedented level for the franchise.
Okay, a team that is supposed to be terrible. Vegas says 5 wins. I've been arguing with J-Mac is they're not great on the defensive side, though they have a great corner and a great safety and active linebackers. But I just think if Franklin pops as a rookie receiver with Mims, with Cortland, I like a couple of their spots on the O-line. They have 2 backs that are capable, Sean Payton. I think Bo Nix is going to start. I think he's a rookie. It's camp. You were there. What do you make of the vibe there?
So Sean Payton really likes his team. And I'm sure you've sort of gotten that vibe too, Colin. He really likes the group that he has. And they've offloaded a lot of talent over the last couple of years, and it's not just Russell Wilson being gone, it's guys like Bradley Chubb and Jerry Jeudy who are part of the core that they built under Vic Fangio. Lots of big names are gone. But, Sean really feels like this is a young, hungry group that is buying into what they're selling them. He feels like he's got a really good coaching staff, guys who are moving in the same direction. And, I think they really feel like they've hit on the rookie class they have this year. Of course, that starts with Bo Nix, but when I talked to Sean, he compared it to the rookie classes he had in New Orleans in 2006 and 2017, and those are pretty historic rookie classes. So what does it add up to? Young, hungry, locked in, listening, and with good young rising talent. Well, in a difficult division, what that adds up to me, is maybe a little bit of a rough start, but a team that's ascending at the end of the year. So I'm not telling you they're going to be in the playoffs, but I think coming out of this year, there are going to be a lot of reasons to be excited about where the Broncos are going.
Okay, another team, I was high on them last year when people thought they were rebuilding. The Rams identified 2 years ago that Aaron Donald would probably leave. So they have spent 4 of their best picks the last 2 years on guys up front. Kobe Turner and Young were big hits. I think these guys could be as good or better. I was following somebody that was at camp a couple days ago, and they're like, oh, no. These Florida State guys they're ballers. I think they're going to be better than people think up front. Where are you on the Rams?
Colin, I think I may pick the Rams to go to the Super Bowl.
Thank you.
Like what I saw when I was at camp was as good as they've been, a different pace in their practices, and a different, I would say, edge to how they're practicing, even from when they were really, really good a couple of years ago. This is a team that hasn't been as physical over the years. It's cost them against the Niners, and I think some of the things that Sean's done over the last 2 years have been to fix that, whether it's bringing in 2 assistant coaches, Nick Caley and Ryan Weddell from New England, bringing Mike LaFleur over, who had been, in San Francisco before he went to the Jets. He's really injected more of an edge into the team, and the team has a different look because of it. And I think you saw that last year. And to me, what was so impressive about last year is they got a lot younger, and they were carrying $75 million in dead cap, and they still somehow made the playoffs. And now they're going into this season, and you look at it, they got a full complement of draft picks going forward. They've got cap flexibility. I would not be surprised if this team gets off to a hot start and has a big swing in them. Now, I don't know where they take that swing. It's hard to predict who will be available trade-wise in October. Like, say, like the negotiation with Patrick Surtain doesn't go well, over the next month. Do the Rams pick up the phone and offer a couple of first-round picks for someone like him? Like, that's the sort of thing I could see materialize, because I do think like that the Rams, with the flexibility that they have and the team that they have, could be in a position where, we're looking at another type of big swing and another sort of go for it move from the group when we get, closer to the trade deadline. So I'm real bullish on where the Rams are going into the fall.
So am I. Packers. So it's amazing. It's almost a college team. They're so young. I mean, they're so young across the board. But I'll tell you, last year, Albert, when I watched them, I really felt like it was Matt LaFleur's team. The way, and I was like, I didn't feel that with Aaron. Not a criticism, but I didn't feel that.
No.
The play calling was crisper. It felt like I was getting what Matt wants the team to look like. I think Jordan Love feels a little more Favre than Aaron. He's a little more willing to let it rip sometimes, which I like. But you're at camp, what do you make of it?
So, like, what you're saying is very real. Aaron is a lot like Peyton Manning in this way. Like, he doesn't want any motion or movement. Like, some of those quarterbacks would rather you break the huddle, you get to the line, and I'll be the one to move the guys around. I don't want that built into the offense. I want to be looking at the defense, and I want to be the conductor out there. And, like, to his credit, Matt LaFleur adapted what he has learned and what he's done over the years in the Shanahan-McVay offense, and made it work for Aaron. So in a lot of ways, when they went to Jordan Love, that was Matt going back to his roots, where he could use the movement and the motion a little bit more. And so I think you're right. Like, he was more comfortable last year as a play caller, running an offense that's closer to what he's always run. And, the great thing about it is they've got an established defense. I think they made a really good hire in getting Jeff Hafley from Boston College. And they've got the big names on that side of the ball, guys like Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark and Jair Alexander. What I love about where they are on offense is, like you said, like Matt LaFleur is running the offense as he sees fit, but also they've got a group of players that are growing up together now, right? Like, so Jordan Love, like, a lot of the guys around him are his contemporaries. The left tackle, Walker, he's a contemporary of Love. The receivers, all of them, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, those guys are all younger than Love. So this team has a chance to really grow up together. And I think that makes what we saw in the playoffs last year very real. So, I don't know if they're going to be able to knock off the Lions in the NFC North, but I would say of the other 3 teams in that division, they are the top contender. And it wouldn't stun me if, we get to the last couple of weeks of the season and those 2 teams are duking it out for the division title.
Listen, I'm watching Niners camp, and it's overflowing with people. In the Cowboys camp, there's empty stands everywhere. And there was a study recently from The Athletic where it's literally like 70% of Cowboy fans, 78% said, we're not winning a Super Bowl in the next decade or half decade. And I think there is sort of a malaise over the franchise. You were there. What did you feel and see?
Yeah, I think it's a tough spot for Mike McCarthy here. He's going into a contract year, and he's tried to instill a very business-like approach there. And I think he's relying, a lot on his staff and his locker room to manage, everything that's happening. CeeDee Lamb isn't there. They did bring up the point to me that Zach Martin missed a lot of camp last year and came back and played well. That's true, right? Like now they're figuring out roles on offense without CD there, and then he's going to be injected back into it. So how does that look? Micah Parsons' contract situation is out there. They also have made the change at defensive coordinator. Dan Quinn, who did a fantastic job there, is gone now. Mike Zimmer is in. And so just feels to me, Colin, like there's a lot to manage there, right? And I think being in the NFC East helps them a little bit. Like the Eagles are dealing with quite a bit of transition themselves. The Giants obviously have had some changes, over the last 6 months. And the Commanders are sort of starting from ground zero with Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. So I think being in the division protects them a little bit and gives them some time to work these things out that maybe they wouldn't have if they were in the NFC North or the NFC West. But certainly there is a lot to manage there. So are they going to be able to get back to that 12-win, level that they've been at the last 3 years again? I'm not sure.
Finally, the Herbert story, plantar fasciitis, not good. He'll be in a walking boot. But, I said this the other day. You know this. I said, if you go back to his Niner teams, they were never great at wide receiver. It was like Michael Crabtree. If you go to his Stanford teams, the weakness, they weren't great at wide receiver. Maybe Doug Baldwin, I think, may have been it. If you go to his Michigan teams last year, Colin Wilson was kind of it. So when I hear the Chargers aren't great at receiver, and I'm like, I couldn't tell you a Harbaugh team that's not his thing. That's not his. He builds O-lines, aggressive, running back rooms. Mm-hmm. I think, J-Mac and I both think that it's kind of a favorable early schedule. I kind of think they could be an 11-win team. I don't think that's a hot take. Where are you on them?
I think Justin Herbert's going to have his best year because Jim Harbaugh has always gotten more out of his quarterbacks by asking less of them, right? And what I mean by that is they're in long yardage less. They're playing from behind less. The game is always managed very efficiently. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are backs that fit what he wants to do, that know what's expected of them, having played for Greg Roman in Baltimore. That offensive line has a chance to be really good. They think the world of Joe Alt and the start that he's had. And I was up next to him a couple of days ago. That's a massive human being. So with their bookends now, Slater and Alt, they expect to be really good on the offensive line. I don't see why the Chargers should not at least contend for a playoff spot in a really difficult AFC this year. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to be able to build the sort of team that he has always had in short order. And that to me is the magic of Harbaugh, right? Like what you're talking about, all those things, Colin, like what other coach has got a style of play that has translated everywhere he went? What he did at Stanford looks like what he did at San Francisco, looks like what he did at Michigan. So why would we expect it not to look just like that with the Chargers? And again, if it looks like that with the Chargers, well, then the weight of the world is going to be off Justin Herbert's shoulders, and he can just go play. And so instead of being in 2nd and 12, he's in 2nd and 5. Instead of being in 3rd and 8, he's going to be in 3rd and 1. Instead of playing from behind, he's going to be playing in close games or from ahead. I think they're going to get the best from Justin Herbert because of the way Jim Harbaugh manages his quarterback, which is a little bit different than other teams that have star quarterbacks. And I think Jim Harbaugh is going to be able to build the exact same sort of team that we've seen from him every place he's been.
You go, I think I say August 3rd, so you're going to the Bears next. Were you surprised? I can't wait for your reports on that. Were you surprised Caleb didn't play a snap against Vanilla Schemes?
Yeah.
Hasn't played since November. Am I wrong on this, or were you surprised?
No, I wasn't surprised. Here's why. It's not about Caleb. And in those situations, it's not about, those situations, it's not always about just the quarterback. It's about who else is going to be out there with him, and these preseason games, all of them, Colin, there's different levels to them, right? So, when the starters are playing in the first quarter, say, they take care of each other, and I'm not saying they're not playing hard. Everybody's playing hard and trying to get ready for the season, but there is an element of like, we're all trying to accomplish the same thing here. And then you get into the second and third and fourth quarter, And as the starters start to come out, you have guys who are just trying to win roster spots, the whole context of the game changes. And so I think this was less about, you know, not feeling like Caleb needed the reps as who are we putting him out there with? If we're sequencing our other guys to get the starters ready to play in the second preseason game, and by the way, the Bears and the Texans are the only ones who got this extra preseason game.
Yeah.
Well, then we don't want to throw Caleb out there with a bunch of backups and guys on defense that are trying to make a roster. You know, we need to protect him better than that. So I think in these situations, you know, where you do see a quarterback sit, especially if it's a young quarterback, oftentimes it's not just about the quarterback. It's about what you're putting out there around him. And they weren't going to throw Caleb Williams out there with a bunch of backups.
All right, his stuff is great. Monday Morning Quarterback, Albert Breer at the Lions camp today. As always, fun time of the year. Good seeing you, my man.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.